Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. Calling the Utilities Committee to order. Today we are here to hear legislation, a presentation, as soon as my tablet comes up. I don't have the legislation in front of me. That will be attached to this. Director, do you know the number? Either way, Cleveland Public Power did a Cleveland rate study. Director, if you want to come up to the table and bring up anybody that from your team. Good morning, Director.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Chairman.
Commissioner. Good morning, CFO.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
So 4 years ago, the council gave Cleveland Public Power the authority to go out for a rate study on the rates of Cleveland Public Power. Long anticipated results of that have now come in, and the administration is here today to present the findings of the rate study for Cleveland Public Power. Just some history, real quick in the background. I'm sure the director will mention this. You know, Cleveland Public Power has not increased its actual rates since 1983, which is 40. This council hasn't sat with this in front of them in over 41 years. Some of the council members were not even on this earth the last time that the rates were adjusted at Cleveland Public Power. So we will not be voting on anything today. This is for educational purposes only to share with us the results of the rate study. So I believe, Director, you have a presentation for us?
We do, Chairman. Thank you, and good morning to you and the members of the Utilities Committee. And not that I ever correct the chairman, but the bit of history 4 years ago was the facility assessment, which was the first step that council wanted us to do before we engaged in the rate studies. So the complete facility assessment was January 2020. Mid 2022, we presented the results of that finding. Mid to late 2022, the results of the facility assessment to Cleveland City Council, which included both the short-term, long-term capital improvement plan. It was a complete analysis of all of the infrastructure of CPP, from receiving power, delivering power to the homes of our customers and businesses. Then in January 2023, late 22, we got authority to get a rate consultant. In January of 23, we went out with an RFP. We received submissions, which were very limited submissions, which we did not feel adequately reflected the needs of our customers and of council. So we then went out to bid again. We reached out to all of the consultants on the mailing list. We did a better job of upfront communicating our expectations to a laundry list of vendors in this field. And then in April of 2023, went out to bid again for a rate consultant. That contract was then let in 2023 with Reftelis, who completed the rate analysis for what we're presenting here today, which is phase one, for years 2025 and 2026. So that's kind of the legislative and operating history of how we ended up here today. If we had 4 years with the rate consultants, it wouldn't be a phase one. I can assure you of that. But we'll get into the details with the committee's prerogative.
And when I said that, I think I kind of just considered,
Right.
because we needed the facilities assessment first, and then the rate study, I kind of considered them all one, because we couldn't get one without the other. So we've been working on trying to get this rate study done, but we needed to get either way.
No,
It's been a very long time, and we have a presentation
Yes.
that you guys have for us.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll kick it off. First of all, with the agenda, we're prepared today to go, just a brief overview of what we're going to present to you. Yes.
Before we get going, we have public comment. Would you mind if we do public comment?
It's the chair's prerogative.
Before we get into this? So we have, you, come on up, you can sit over here. You don't have to leave the table, Director. And a public comment, we give you 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so introduce yourself and then
Okay.
you're on the
Thank
clock.
you. My name is Daryl Houston, and I'm just a concerned citizen about the utilities that we're being provided in the community. And what I've noticed is a great mismanagement of not taking care of your utility poles. As you go through the city, you'll see a lot of utility poles tied to each other. You'll see a lot of dangling utility poles tied to each other. I don't see you guys out in the summer trimming anything back from the utility poles for the residents. So it's kind of confusing to me how utility companies can come sitting here and ask the taxpayers to pay more for a service that you're not even providing at a bare minimum. So I'm curious to understand, when are you guys going to start doing your jobs before you come and ask for rates? When are you guys going to come out in the community and actually do work? None of your utility poles have been updated at all. We're behind in technology. You guys have not invested anything whatsoever into this community on any basis that I can see physically. And I'm concerned about that because the utilities are going up, water's going up, property taxes are going up, they're talking about gas going up, and here you come asking for a higher rate based on what? Because I would probably give you guys an F+ based on what I can physically see. I don't like sitting here listening to statistics. I like to see results. I'm a result-driven human being that comes here, and I began to start this about, 4 months ago with you guys? And I've just been questioning a lot of things because I'm reading in the bylaws that you guys are supposed to do these things, and they're supposed to oversee you guys doing these things. But in both sides, I don't see any parties working together. I don't see anything whatsoever taking place in my community. Last night, when I just left another meeting, I was driving up St. Clair. All the lights were out, totally out. And I reported that to your councilman. I reported that to the safety director. Last night, I physically saw these things. And it's appalling that you guys sit here and act numb to the things that you're not doing. It's not fair to the citizens at all. It's not fair to the city council. It's just not fair. Hold your part of the bargain, because they're trying to hold their part, but it's the company that's not holding their part. You're letting the community down. And if you represent the light company, the power company, I would suggest that you guys do your jobs. I really would suggest that, because I'm greatly considering suing you guys, because I can see where you guys have not done anything for this city whatsoever.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Houston.
sir.
Appreciate your comments. All right, Director, if you want to respond, or if not, you just want to go right into the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're here today is serving the 73,000 customers of Cleveland Public Power and padding a path forward to deliver better service every day, which is our goal.
All right, thank you. All
Thank
right.
you. Again, briefly with our agenda, we're going to go over the CPP organization, recent initiatives, customer base, current financial position, and phase 1 of the rate study. By way of overview on page 4, CPP sent out a request for proposals to develop a comprehensive financial plan, including cost of service study and rate and fee analysis for a 5-year period, originally intended to be 2025 through 2029, consistent with the divisions of water and water pollution control. That almost immediately was recognized to be a phased approach to our rates, given what we're going to go through today with the financial metrics, et cetera. So today we're prepared to present the rate study results for 2025 and 2026 to meet the financial obligations, operation maintenance, capital, and necessary debt service coverage. Phase 2 of the analysis, which continues today, will be to present to you a cost of service finding and rate study for years 27 to 29, which we expect to be in 2026, hopefully. Again, on page 5, phase 1 goals and objectives were to develop a plan to ensure stability and improve CPP's financial health. In doing so, we reviewed all of CPP's financial requirements to ensure compliance, debt service coverage, specific to an increased debt payment starting in 2025, our total cash balance, align the capital and operating funding with the system's needs, and review and update any ancillary fees. On page 7 is a brief, I'm sure hopefully all of council's aware of the leadership of Cleveland Public Power and of the Department of Public Utilities. Here with us today is Commissioner Ammon Danielson. He also is represented Bernie Jackson, Assistant Commissioner, Aaliyah McBooth, Assistant Commissioner, and Jim Ferguson, the Chief Superintendent. By way of the Department of Public Utilities, myself, Director of Public Utilities, Catherine Troy, to my left, the CFO for all of the Department of Public Utilities, Executive Commissioner Danielle Graham, Chief Information Officer Mark Lasik, Chief of Public Affairs Margaret Jackson in the back, and Joe Novak, our Chief of Safety. With that, I'm going to pass it over to the Commissioner to go over the next couple slides as we proceed into the financial analysis. And I'll pass that as well. Commissioner?
Commissioner, just make sure you talk. Just make sure you talk into the mic, so that I see where a problem with channel 20. It's only here, it is online though. So for our folks online, make sure you talk into the mic so that they're able to hear you as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And good morning. It's good to see you all again so soon. All right, so you have seen this slide before. Unlike last time, I would like to spend a little more time here in terms of context. Our 138 kV transmission lines are valuable and they are costly. Valuable because they increase our system reliability and redundancy, and generally our ability to serve power. Costly because a conservative estimate of replacing each one of those miles is about $2 million. The substations, those 33 substations that you see up there, those are the hubs that serve our network, our grid in individual neighborhoods. Recently, I was talking to a municipal peer of ours, and they had to replace one of those high voltage substations about 10 or 15 years ago, I think it was, and it cost them $5 million. Recently, today, they are installing a new one, and it is $16 million. On the other end of our substation scale, we have 2,400 volt substations. This is a voltage and related technology that isn't really used anymore. We still have it, we still need it, it's still an important part of our reliability, but every year it's getting more costly and more difficult to find parts and to maintain in general. So we have plans, we have options, we need to execute projects to ensure their continued reliability, but they do all require investment. We have more than 10 miles of wire for each square mile of the city of Cleveland. That number would be even higher if we had the footprint to serve all of our potential customers. Every year, the cost of metals increases, and just recently, after that storm, we had to replace 5.5 of those miles of wire. You heard a lot more details on this slide last week. I will be quick. Just in short, we have generation that we procure outside of the city generally, right? So that's the gray sort of building on the left-hand side there. We purchase that on behalf of our customers and pay for it to be transmitted to our grid. And there it reaches our own high voltage transmission lines and it gets stepped through our substations where that voltage gets reduced to run on our primary distribution wires to individual pole or pad mount transformers, then step it down in turn to the local power, like the 120 volts at your plug-in outlet, right? So that's essentially in snapshot how it goes from 138 kV or higher all the way down to 120 volts. Each part of that requires maintenance and is an important part of our reliability. So later when we talk about rates, it's essentially for that equipment that on this slide is colored red or orange, I guess, depending on your screen. Why is public power important? Why is CPP important? I think the recent storm highlighted that first bullet point. When the power went out for half of Cleveland, CPP employees responded immediately. Within a couple of hours, the lights started coming back on for our customers, and by day 3, we had 85% of our customers back in power. I do want to say as well, for the other 15%, they are certainly not forgotten. And they were not forgotten at the time. I understand every minute without power is important. Power is an essential utility, and everything that we can do to improve, we will continue to do. We learned from that storm, and we will continue to learn and improve. And that is part of why we are here today. The other aspect, local power comes with local decisions. So you who are here representing our customers, you make great decisions based on what is best for our customers, right? You review and approve budgets, projects, expenditures, our capital priorities, and our bond measures. Those decisions are never about return on equity, like it would be for an investor-owned utility. These are local decisions, and they are for the benefit of our community. Speaking of local responsiveness, then, a big part of being reliable is simply answering the phone and showing up. And when there's a problem, we do both. Our crews are located in the city, and we respond 24/7. When we have system problems, we don't stop working until it's improved. We invest in the grid every way we can, whether that's replacing wires, moving a problem circuit underground, or replacing the substation transformer. To be clear though, we do need to invest more to maintain our reliability and to continue to deliver this essential service to our customers. On the next slide, these two really go hand in hand. It's a balance that we all care about. CPP has low rates. We've had low rates for decades. We also invest in our community. So every dollar that we bring in is for our community, for our customers, and every dollar saved for Cleveland Public Power customers is better for each individual and better for our local economy. Our procurement processes are city processes and reflect the values that are established by the city council. That means procurements themselves are very often local investments. Investing isn't just dollars and cents. We are extremely proud of our line worker apprenticeship program. This program is more than the apprenticeship itself. We develop high school students starting out from interns to line worker helpers, and finally to highly trained, highly skilled, and highly paid local union journey workers. This is a year after year pipeline and sometimes lifeline for our community. Innovation, in turn, isn't just about the front end of being at the front end of trends. For us, it's figuring out those changes, large and small, that improve service for our customers. Sometimes it is not following trends. A large percent of our customers want to talk to a person. You call CPP, you get a person. You don't get AI, you don't get endless phone scripts. The effort that we put in is to improve that service, reduce hold times, reduce the number of times that a customer needs to call, or the number of people that a customer needs to speak to in order to get a resolution. Sometimes innovation is being an early adopter, like when we replaced the majority of our streetlights with LED. And yes, we do need to replace the rest, and they are coming. I don't yet have a delivery date. While being responsible for our customers' rates and making long-term investments to stabilize our power portfolio, we have prioritized renewable energy. This year, we're also collaborating with a regional team and won an EPA grant to help install community solar directly on our grid for the benefit of all of our customers. So what has CPP been working on? This and the next slide is something of a laundry list. I won't go into too many details unless you want to eat lunch and dinner together. But it does serve to show that year over year we are improving our service. The facilities assessment informs our capital decisions. SCADA is essential to the safe and reliable operation of our transmission grid and eventually will be incorporated for our distribution system as well. Safety is a never-ending top priority. CityWorks helps improve our work order tracking and our communications. We look for opportunities in every area. We are expanding our community outreach, including partnering with non-governmental organizations that help with that and represent different parts of our customer base. And that is a big part of what enabled that recent application for federal funding for that EPA grant. Before we do move on, I'd like to mention or reiterate a few things, though, that we do not do. That's because there are very important things that I in Cleveland Public Power don't do. We don't have other communities to prioritize. We serve Cleveland as our first and our only priority. I'm not directed by out-of-state board members. On that note, I don't get a bonus for increasing customer costs for the sake of an increased return on equity, which is standard for investor-owned utilities. I have no conflicting interests between investors and my customers. What I am, what we are, is accountable to you and our customers. My budget, my priorities, and your budget is our priorities. Cleveland Public Power is Cleveland, and we are stronger together. To stay viable, to stay reliable, and to continue to serve our customers, CPP does need these rate changes. And on to Catherine, our CFO.
Thank you, Ammon. On the next slide, maybe. Again, council has seen this slide or very similar to this slide in years past. This is the CPP customer base as of the end of 2023. CPP has about 73,000 customers. Of that, 64,000 are residents. Small commercial is another 6,400. Large commercial customers are 682. Our largest customers, industrial, are at a count of 23, and then 1,700 accounts are other, which includes streetlights, traffic lights, and protective lights. You can see the map on the right provides the count for the number of accounts per ward. CPP's largest customer is the City of Cleveland, which makes up 20% of the total sales for the division. If water was independent of the city, it would be 9% of CPP's accounts sales-wise. Traffic and streetlights is 8%, and then the rest of the city accounts is 3% of the total sales. The next top 30 customers for the city, or for CPP, make up the next 20% of the revenues. This customer list has been stable for several years. Only changes that have really happened in that time period are when new customers have been added. Since 2017, CPP has, yes, sir. Okay. Since 2017, CPP has been able to sign 66 commercial customers to long-term contracts. That includes 8 new customers that have been consistently in the top 40 customer listings since they've been brought on board. In addition to that 66 customers, 23 new apartment buildings have been added to the rolls. This includes about 2,700 apartments, which is a mixture of commercial accounts or individual residential accounts depending on how they were brought onto the system. And Ammon is going to talk about the expansion efforts today.
Just a quick note on that, really. We continue to expand the citizens and Cleveland businesses that we can reach. We are partnering with economic development, the city department, in 2 different directions. We help to identify sites that are optimally situated and work with them to pre-engineer essentially the power supply requirements for different likely prospects. And the second, we work with them to identify sites that would both serve as ideal locations for businesses and sites for community solar that would support all CPP customers. Sustainability, I want to note, has also been invaluable in pursuing and realizing those community solar opportunities. And thanks to the support of this council and the economic development team, CPP is the preferred power provider for businesses receiving a community benefits agreement. Our sales team performs outreach for prospective residential and commercial customers throughout our footprint. Keeping up with demand can be a problem, but it is a good problem to have. Finally, our sales team has established and continues to build important relationships with local developers. They know that they can trust CPP to be fair, to be responsive, and of course to always prioritize our customers. Thank you, Catherine.
Our residential customers have changed over time. In 2012, the average residential customer used 532 kilowatt hours per month on average throughout the year. In 2022, that average has gone down to 508 kilowatt hours. So we are seeing the average customer use reducing over time, but it is not a direct loss every year. So just because you see the drop in 22 does not mean that there are other years that were not lower or higher prior to that. For example, you can see on the left-hand side, the graph, the dark orange is the 2022 average consumption by month. You can see that those numbers are actually pretty similar between 2022 for those first couple months, and then in the summer months in 2012 it jumped up because of the weather. That is a big deciding factor on what we expect to see in consumption in those months. Between the last 15 years, the consumption average for the residential customer has been as low as an average of 473 kilowatt hours per month and as high as 541 kilowatt hours per month. Again, fluctuations happen because of weather. Hot summers, think about 90-degree days for several days in a row, or really cold winters where the temperature stayed below freezing for long periods of time. For CPP, that is good for sales, but bad for customers. But the opposite is true. Of cool summers and warm winters is good for the customer, for their bottom line, but bad for CPP. CPP does need to make sure that they ensure that they have the rates in place to cover those swings, because they need to make sure that they have the infrastructure in place to cover those swings. Next slide is the average kilowatt hour usage for appliances per month in today's consumption environment. So if you were to buy an air conditioner today, for a family of 4, they would assume about 300 kilowatt hours for the month when in use. And that goes down for all of these examples. That is different 10 to 15 years ago. Most of these appliances have reduced up to 25% in some cases. So we do expect that the residential customers will continue to conserve in the future, but that is assuming on individual appliances. That is not to say that other appliances won't come into their homes. This is the part that everybody's very excited about, I am sure, the current financial position of CPP. I'd like to remind everybody that CPP is an enterprise fund for the City of Cleveland. Enterprise funds are used to account for the operations that function in a manner like private business enterprises and are financed primarily by user fees to the general public. CPP's metrics in the past, they currently have active accounts receivable over 180 days at $4.5 million. The collection rate today is 98.4% on an annual average. The ratings from the agencies are Moody's at A3 and S&P at A-. This is typical for public power entities in the nation. And the total bond principal outstanding is $151.6 million. Outstanding debt is through 2038 at this time, and the last time CPP went out for new money was 2008. CPP has experienced budget pressures throughout this time, but especially in the last several years. Wages and benefits, since 2018, certain positions in the division have increased up to 30%. And our benefits have increased about 44% in this same time period. Costs of materials and supplies have increased dramatically since 2014. Transformers have increased 65%, wire and cable have increased 30%, and poles have increased 15% since 2014. And then there's supply chain issues. Anytime that hurricanes, wildfires, anything that is declared a national disaster happens, that states that all public or all power infrastructure pieces are supposed to be delivered to those areas that are most affected. This means that if there is a transformer on the train coming to CPP, it gets diverted to Florida if there's a hurricane. This means that CPP not only has to make sure that they have enough infrastructure in inventory at that time, they also have to be able to plan around if there's big lag times in the future. Federal oversight is also something that has been constraining the supply chain for the last several years. They've recently announced new regulations for transformers, wires, and poles that are still under review at the national level, as well as safety regulations to make sure that everyone is very secure in what they are working on, which is definitely one of our priorities for our staff. Phase 1 results of the report. So this is phase 1, as the director had discussed earlier. During this review, we had to determine several financial targets that must be identified to ensure the division can succeed over the period of review, which in this case is 2025 and 2026. These targets helped create the revenue requirement. The revenue requirement is the total of the operation, maintenance, and capital costs that a utility must recover during a time period which the rates are in place. To your right, you will see all of these numbers are excluding power costs because that is what we're talking about here in this instance. What are the costs to run CPP? So you can see in 2024, the expected revenue requirement is $73 million. But in 2025, it raises to $79 million. This is broken out because the debt payment is rising 1.9 million. We have identified through the facility assessment that we need additional capital, so we are starting to raise the capital expenditures, and that is going up another 1.8 million. And because of those budget constraints that we had talked about earlier, we are expecting operation expenses to jump 2.3 million, which is still less than what I am sure Ammon would appreciate if I gave him tomorrow. Ideally, through the facility assessments, they'd given us a number of 18 to $20 million annually. We are obviously not jumping to that immediately, but that is something that we are trying to get at least closer to through this cycle and next cycle. The first target that I talked about earlier was making sure that our cash position, the target was identified that we should have 150 days cash on hand. This is set by rating agencies as well as best practices. In order for us to stay in our ratings that we have today, which again is Moody's at A3 and S&P at A-, the rating agencies say that we should have cash reserves of about 150 days. So the cash reserves primary purposes are to ensure timely payments of bills, including purchase power, maintain stable rates, and to ensure that we are able to respond to emergencies in an efficient manner. A healthy cash reserve is essential for bond rating agencies because it signals that the utility can cover the debt payments if revenue falls below targets or if operations exceed projections. You can see on the right-hand side that with the recommended rate, we still will not hit the 150-day target because we have that, because we are not going to be there immediately. We are addressing that through the second phase of the program, but we wanted to make sure we were not going down at this time. The next target that we identified for the revenue requirement was that we needed to make sure that we were able to pay our debt service payments. CPP has been successful in years past with refunding debt. So CPP was in 2016, 2018, and in 2020 was able to refund debt because the markets allowed for it. This was a savings of $37 million for the CPP customers, which was passed on to our customers. This means that we did not need to raise rates in those time periods. Debt payments from 2025 through 2038, which is the length of our total debt, is going to be about $17.8 million per year moving forward based on the current debt we have today. Our bond indenture, which we have to enter into every time we go into the market, requires that we have a debt service coverage of 1.25 times the annual debt payment. So when you look at our financial statements, it is our net revenues over our annual debt payment. So as our debt payment increases, we need to increase our net revenues by 1.25 times that. The debt service coverage you can see here. It measures the CPP's available cash flow to pay current debt obligations. It shows lenders whether CPP can have enough income to pay its debts. The indenture, again, requires a minimum of 1.25, but we have set a target of 1.50 so that we can address any unforeseen circumstances that might happen. So this means if there's mild weather, extreme weather, loss of a major customer, increased cost of supplies and equipment that cannot be delayed or withheld. So you can see right here, our target is 1.50 in 2025. That is what we're expected to get to if the recommended rates are approved. This slide has been shown to council in the past. This is the three components to a residential customer bill. These three components have always been on the residential bill. Today, we are asking for council to review the electricity charge portion of the bill, which is the fixed rate that CPP charges for each kilowatt hour of power that customer uses. This covers the cost of operations, capital, and debt expenses for the division. The other two sections, the kilowatt hour tax, is set by the state of Ohio, and the power supply recovery, which used to be known as the EAC, recovers the cost incurred for the purchase of electric power that CPP passes along to the customers. Slide 33 shows an example of our residential bills and our average customer is 500 kilowatt hours each month. The way you read this is the electricity charge is currently 7.74 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you multiply the 7.74 cents times 500, that portion is $38.70. The power supply recovery is 7.938 cents. So it's times that by 500 kilowatt hours, which is $39.69. And the tax is 0.465 cents per kilowatt hour, which equates to 2.33 cents for the month. So the total bill in the summer is $80.72. The same way you read summer would be for winter, so the typical bill would be $74.77. The recommended residential changes are to your right that you can see. This is actually, our customers can expect, if the recommended rates are approved, a net increase of 6.75% in 2025, and then a net increase of 4.5% in 2026. The recommended rate plan shows we are providing the low users, the average users, and then what we consider high users. So the 200 kilowatt hours would be our low users, 500 kilowatt hours are our average users, and 800 kilowatt hours are our high users. The bills, again, include the electricity charge, power supply recovery, and the kilowatt hour tax. And we believe at this point that the power supply recovery and kilowatt hour tax will remain the same over those years. So the way to read this, if you were at the 500 kilowatt hour customer, in 2024, they are paying $80.72 in the summer. In 2025, that same consumption would be $86.42 for a monthly change of $5.70. And in 2026, it would go to $90.52, which is an increase of $4.10. On slide 36, you can see the same impacts for the winter. So the 500 kilowatt hour user is currently paying $74.77. In 2025, it would be $79.62, which is a $4.85 differential. And in 2026 would be $83.07, which is $3.45 additional. The comparison for our rates compared to others in the state, the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio publishes an average bill for the various areas of the state. Their comparisons are based on a 750 kilowatt hour usage, and they do not include the kilowatt hour tax in their calculation. So these numbers are what we received from them, and that's, I promise it says $141.38, $141 for Columbus, all the way down. CPP is the lowest currently at $112.38. So,
Those are all hundreds.
yes, those are all hundreds. Yes. Okay. And with that, I will return it to the director.
Thank you, and then just in summary,
Sorry.
obviously, we wouldn't be sitting here today if CPP weren't vital to the city of Cleveland, and our customers important to all of us. And every dollar that CPP collects is used to serve our customers and meet our existing financial obligations. Rates are among the lowest in the state, as you saw in the last slide. CPP keeps Clevelanders in Cleveland, as the commissioner talked about earlier. The opportunities with our apprenticeship program, the wage that we pay these skilled workers, and the skills that we encourage and support them in developing, obviously we believe is very, very important, not only to our employee, but more importantly to our customers. And then finally, as a city asset, CPP must remain flexible and adaptable to provide necessary services to all of the neighborhoods that we provide. Our ability to, as again, the commissioner spoke of it probably better, but when those opportunities exist for a new customer, we're there. We're responsive. When problems exist, we are there. It's something that we as an organization and as a city and council encourages us every day to be out there in the community, talking to our customers, explaining what we're doing, and finding ways to do it better. This presentation is our effort to do it better. We know that we need to improve in our operation. We know we need to improve on our capital outlay, and we know we need to remain financially viable. And these rate recommendations, while taking into consideration all of the stresses on our customers, more than anybody else, right? And as the Department of Public Utilities, with 3 of those utilities that affect the majority of this city, we don't take it lightly, and we don't. There's not a lot of meat on the bone, but we know we need to do better. And in order to do better, we need to raise the rates, the base rates, for the first time in a very long time. We've put in the effort, and I would commend the commissioner and his team and the CFO and her team in working and managing the consultants who had never been in a utility that hadn't done this in 40 years. So it was a Herculean effort on behalf of the staff to get us to this point, but we stand behind this recommendation in order to better serve our customers, which is what we do every single day. So with that, Chairman, we are happy to answer any questions that you or the council may have.
Before I open up to my colleagues, I just have a couple, and then I'll circle back to myself. Currently, what is CPP's unencumbered cash?
Unencumbered cash at the moment is about $30 million.
And then, Madam CFO, you kept referring to 150 days. What would it cost? What's the cost of running Cleveland Public Power for 150 days?
150 days right now should be at about $80 million total cash, and CPP's total cash right now is at about 73 at best. About 70 million right now. So we're already about 10 million lower than what we should be by next year.
Okay, so explain this to me. If we have 30 million in unencumbered cash, but it costs 80 million to keep the lights on, CPP running for 150 days, okay? What's the difference between what you have in whatever your 150 days worth is and in unencumbered cash? What's the
Yeah.
difference in the two of those?
The total cash should be at about 150 days, and that includes money that we already have assigned to projects. As work is completed, we have money that is ready to go to those those vendors for us. So, and there's an average that we always have in that process that is our encumbered cash. So we need to make sure that we have enough to obviously pay the vendors, and then we also need to make sure that we have an amount that is available in case any emergencies happen or any surprises happen. So we do not encumber our power costs every month. As the bills come in, they are paid right away. So that has to always be in our minds when we're looking at our unencumbered cash.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification
No,
on
hang
that.
on, hang on. What did you call it? The 150 day, you called it something, total cash? or
Total
something?
cash.
Okay, so there's two different pots of money, right? You have your unencumbered cash pot, then you have your total cash pot, correct? The total cash pot should always be somewhere around $80 million.
In today's
In today,
expenses, yes.
right, today's expenses, so that if every single customer stopped paying their bill tomorrow, we would have 150 days to figure that out without going into the unencumbered cash, correct?
Our unencumbered cash is within the total cash. So it is a smaller bucket within the big bucket.
So when you say that we have, what'd you say, 73 million in total cash?
Correct?
Does that include the 30 million?
Yes,
Okay, so,
yes. So we have
right,
encumbered about $40 million
okay.
today.
Okay. All right, going back to your, Commissioner Danielson, if I counted it right, there's between us purchasing the power off the grid and getting it to somebody's house, there's 7 different steps in that process. Did I count that right?
At least, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we pin down the fact that power just doesn't appear when you hit the light switch, right? That there is a long, tedious process to get that electricity to the house, and it's just not, hey, hit a switch and power is there, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, and then I have one more that I wanted to touch on. CFO Troy mentioned about our customers. I think it was, I forget what number it was here. On page whatever, page 18. When you said our largest customers, the city of Cleveland accounts for 20% of
Thank you.
the total customers.
sales.
Total sales. Where do the residential part of that fall into that? So I'm assuming when you say city of Cleveland, you're talking water plants, power
City Hall.
plants,
City
city
Hall.
hall, all that. So we get that. Get Cleveland Division of Water, those are entities as well. I understand traffic lights, but what percentage makes up for the residents?
Residential sales is about 33% of our total for the division. For those revenues.
Even though you say large, so when
So
you say
City of Cleveland
largest
is
customer,
Cleveland being
even though there's
the
30 or
customers.
40 different accounts, you still count that as one, right? You still count that as the city of Cleveland, even though City Hall's being charged separately, the plant is being charged, the water plant's being charged separately, but you still consider that all. So residential though is 33% of all total sales.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. I'll go to my vice chair, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Chairman Casey, for allowing me to start off, and I may come back on the list as well, but I'll start with a few initial comments and some questions. First, I would like to shout you out, Chairman Casey. I appreciated the slides talking about efforts to grow the customer base, and I can tell you, I have never been in a meeting with this man in which he didn't ask if someone was a CPP customer or he's a tremendous advocate. So I've seen it so many times, and it's just the drumbeat. And also, I believe it's integrated into our CBA process for community benefits agreements. So I really give you, Chairman Casey, a lot of credit for that. And I want to also reiterate my support for CPP. I think the importance of having a public power in the city of Cleveland is well established, well understood. Okay, I guess I'll dive in with some questions. I am just wanting to make sure I understand, this was at the very beginning of the presentation, the difference between phase 1 and phase 2, and specifically, would phase 2 also present a possible rate increase down the road? I'm not quite sure I'm catching why this is a phased approach and what the difference is.
Thank you, through the chair to the council members. So we didn't originally intend for it to be a phased approach. Similar to what we do with much more regularity at the divisions of water and water pollution control, we do a kind of every 10 years we do 2 studies. We try to around the year ending in 5. We do the rate analysis to meet our operation, management, maintenance, O&M, capital, and debt. Around the year ending in 0, we do the cost of service analysis, which is much more in-depth to determine how much it costs to pull in the resource, deliver the resource to the customer, right? So it's much more entailed, but it's not done every time we do a rate analysis. So in this instance, we started with what we had hoped to be a cost of service and resulted in a rate study, which resulted in meet our obligations for debt, operate and maintain our existing infrastructure, and then start the process of increasing our investment into capital. So I hope that it's not a full cost of service analysis, which will be phase 2, may result in increased rates, but this is a rate study is how we're calling it. Did I do that, Troy?
Correct.
The CFO can
I
correct me
think
if
by
I
the
did.
time I've heard it a third or fourth time, I will finally get it. But that's good enough for now. But it kind of leads into the next question I did have, which is about capital needs and how this particular rate increase might relate to additional capital improvements. I think also there was something else I wanted to shout out our chairman for, which was in his wisdom. We are not voting on this piece today. This is a vetting. That's really important that we have time to digest this detailed information, and that will come back for additional discussion before a vote. But I think it could be helpful, this is just my gut, to have a slide or some information about recent capital improvements that have been made.
Yes.
Because it is my understanding, I'm a CPP customer, this is just anecdotal. It is purely anecdotal, but I've experienced fewer outages in the past 3 years than I had previously. And I believe there have been capital improvements in terms of transmission lines, redundancy. I don't know all the terminology. I'm doing what I can here. But I think showing progress would help so people really understand the efforts that have been made. And then if we're ready to talk about it, where do we still need to be? I think, because here's what I'm getting at. People are happy, and then the minute the power goes out, they're very unhappy. People are fine, they don't think about it, they go about their day. Minute the power goes out, it's, oh, CPP, it's I'm sorry to the members of the public, that I'm imitating myself. We all feel the same way. I'm not trying to jest about the stress that we experience when power goes out. But I think the perception is that power goes out because of poor infrastructure. Now, whether that's true or not, we know that the main cause is hit poles, all sorts of other stuff. But I think it would just be nice to have kind of a solid understanding of progress with infrastructure and any future needs. And then this is sort of a long-winded way to ask my question, which is, does this particular rate study or rate increase recommendation tie to impending capital needs or capital improvements? I know there was a slide that touched on that through the chair. Hope that made sense.
Yes, and
Okay.
Chair to the council member, it improves the investment in our capital needs, but certainly doesn't meet it. The facility assessment, as CFO Troy, Chief Troy said, the facility assessment that we conducted at council's request from 2020 to 2022 had us between $18 and $20 million a year in capital investment. This recommendation would get us from $5 million to $7 million in 2025, and then $9.8 million in 2026. So it's a step.
Okay.
It's more than we've done. It's more than we can do, but it's a step in the right direction. I hope that answers the question.
And even that might be helpful and I'm sorry if I missed it, and again, grateful for additional time to study, but I think that even coming across very clearly that we're going from a $5 million per year, it might have been presented, but a $5 million per year capital expenditure to an anticipated $9 million, I think is an important data point. Okay, it is there. Okay, but that I had not recalled the facilities assessment and how this compares to that. So, but nonetheless, it is my understanding that CPP has made substantial infrastructure improvements that have improved power reliability. I think, as an advocate, I'm going to want to be out in the community being able to explain why you can count on CPP for power reliability and the best possible outcomes we can get. And so that would help me, in talking about infrastructure improvements would help me do that.
And again, through the chair to the council member, we also appreciate the opportunity to present and to give you the necessary information, you as all the council members representing all of our customers, the necessary information to promote what we're trying to do. So we'll give you everything you need on a capital individually, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll come back to present. We'll make sure that is a focus of our presentation.
Thank you.
And if I could,
Sure.
as part of that request, when you come back to present again, because we will do at least one more presentation before a vote, please make sure you give us everything you've done within the last 5 years, 10 years, as far as capital improvement, and then what the plan is over the next 5 years, which should cover phase 1 and 2 of this. Make sense?
Yes, Chairman.
You have that, Brooke? All right, thank you. Go ahead.
No, that's
Councilwoman.
helpful. Thank you. I'm trying to think of a way to, I guess I'll just ask it in the way it's occurring to me. Of our customer coverage, how much of those customers could opt out of CPP if they wished? In other words, could the whole city where we have coverage switch to CEI, or are there areas where we can't? Because I know in my ward, I'm not even sure. I think it might be a blend, but I'm kind of curious to know how that
Director?
stands.
So, Chairman, to the council member, I mean, the easy answer is all of them,
Okay.
but it would depend on how much the competitor of Cleveland Public Power would charge to run the wires, right? There's a lot of our footprint has both primary wires on streets or the availability of such, but there's neighborhoods that are exclusively CPP, existing infrastructure. There's neighborhoods that are exclusively First Energy by way of distribution infrastructure. So I guess the only way I could answer it is all of them, but there's certain neighborhoods that would be cost prohibitive going both ways.
And I've gotten phone calls regarding this. It's not as simple as, oh, I don't want CPP anymore, I want First Energy, and you just switch it over. There's fees, there's a lot more to it than just, hey, I don't want First Energy anymore, I want CPP. You know, so there's a lot more to that than just, hey, I want to change my electric supplier. And it is, either way, it is very costly in fees and running lines and stuff like that, so. sorry.
Thank you. No problem. I'll put a pin in that. That's not as relevant for what we need to discuss today. I did want to ask the port, even though it's not affected by the rate study, the power supply recovery, AKA EAC. I think it is still EAC on the bill. I'm looking at my bill right now. So for what it's worth, it still is EAC on the bill that customers are receiving. When will that sunset? Sorry, pop quiz question. Where do we know when that?
Through the chair, that's part of this legislation, and the renaming, you mean? Or
The charge itself.
I think through the chair to the council member, when will it go away?
Just a general reminder of, yes, how
Yeah.
long does that obligation remain?
So that obligation is how we buy power. So the energy adjustment charge, which we are recommending to be renamed as power supply recovery, because we've heard from everybody how hard it is to explain energy adjustment charge. But we're hoping that power supply recovery is easier for us to explain and our customers to understand. We're always going to have to recover the cost of the power that we buy. And that gives us the authority to recover the costs of the power that we buy. So it's not a sunset by way of go away. It's not a debt obligation of our organization. It is the method by which we buy power to deliver to our customers.
And I might put a pin in this too,
Mr. Chairman,
however, I had understood we were in a contractual obligation that's tied to this
It's
particular.
actually legislated, isn't it? The energy adjustment charge.
So the energy adjustment charge today, the recommended, calling it the power supply recovery, is legislated under 52317.
Right.
And it allows us to change the charge on the bills based on the power costs that we are incurring. So when you're looking at your budget books every year, there's 3 lines: purchase power, capacity charges, and transmission charges. All of those costs are what is being passed through the EAC, soon to be, hopefully, the PSO.
But this legislation today does not affect the EAC,
rate.
right?
Other than-
We're just talking today about the rate for the kilowatt per hour. We are not touching right now the cost of, it's not going up, it's not going
No.
down, we're not touching that in this legislation. This is just for the kilowatt per hour, correct?
That's right.
Electricity
Right.
charge,
Electricity
correct.
The
charge.
electricity charge.
Electricity charge.
Correct.
Can you, through the chair, to Ms. Troy, could you repeat those 3 elements?
Purchase power, capacity charges, and transmission charges. They're
Mr.
under
Chairman, can you repeat it
materials
again?
and supplies.
Can you repeat
One
that
more time.
Purchase power, capacity charges, and transmission charges. They're all under the materials and supplies section of the budget.
Did you have a point, Joe?
Well, I'm going to wait, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, when
All
you
right.
put me down on questioning
Right.
for the sake
Yeah.
of keeping consistency with my colleague's
Okay.
question. She's answering some
I-
good
I-
questions.
Yeah. I think I will leave it at that for now. I am mindful as we come back for additional discussion that council approved rate increases recently for water pollution control and water. And I think as representatives of our constituents, I think it would be beneficial, at least for me, to have that big picture understanding of household impacts. So that might be something I will explore and come back to our chair if I have questions, but certainly understand the need to move forward with this legislation as well. So,
All right,
thank you.
Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple clarifying questions, but first, following off Councilwoman Spencer, why isn't the kilowatt hour rate simply a reflection of the price that CPP buys power from the market for? Why isn't it just you buy it for this much and then you pass that cost on to the customers? Of course, you put in the cost of the transmission lines and all that. Why is kilowatt hour something that we're going to decide instead of something the market dictates?
Director?
I'm gonna see if
Okay, so the power supply recovery is what is dictated by the market. The electricity charge is what is dictated by the expenses of CPP to run the system. So those are two different areas of, if I understood your question
So through the
correctly.
chair, to make sure I got this right, the kilowatt hour rate is a reflection of the cost of distributing power to the customer. The EAC, or soon to be PSR, is the cost of purchasing the power.
Correct.
Okay. 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 So here's my clarifying questions, and I'll try to go in order of the pages. On page 14, there's a bunch of terms I don't understand. The first is SCADA upgrades. What is SCADA, through the chair to the director or the commissioner?
through the chairman to the council member, supervisory control and data acquisition in all of the plants, and I know that it's the technology by way of monitoring the peaks and valleys of the grid, right? So it's control, it's technological control of the flow of power, the flow of water, the flow of sewers. So SCADA is industry standards at optimizing the operation, knowing where there's deficiencies, knowing when there's problems. So SCADA is what we do.
Through the chairs, the computers you use to monitor the system.
That's it.
Okay. I know what geographic information systems are. I know what safety training is. I thought CityWorks was a billing system through the chair. Then I see CC&B billing system. So what is the difference between CityWorks and CC&B?
CityWorks, through the chairman of the council member, is our work management system. When you have work orders that need to be completed. CPP historically had not been actively on CityWorks,
Okay.
while the majority of the city and public utilities has been. So in an effort to better coordinate our efforts in terms of maintenance and then reporting back, we're transitioning CPP more onto CityWorks. CCNB, Customer Care and Billing.
Customer care.
Again, in 2020, CPP converted from a very antiquated system known as Banner to CCNB, which is a customer something portal. So CM, customer management. So it's customer based. Billing history, payment history, consumption history, addresses, start stops. That's CCNB.
Cool. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I knew what I was looking at there. SCADA is the computer that they use to monitor their own systems. So it keeps track of the flow of electricity and the movement around the grid. It's their computer system to monitor. Was that? Oh, I'm sorry, through the chair, could you repeat the acronym SCADA?
Yes, SCADA. SCADA, I think, supervisory control and data acquisition.
So on page 28, through the chair, is where my questions really begin. So could the director or the commissioner or the chief financial officer through the chair explain why we have to increase our debt payment? Is it through choice or through necessity? Is it good best practice or is it something we must do? Increase our debt payment.
So I will take an initial stab through the chairman to the council member, if you will look on page 30.
Which we were working up to page 30, yes.
Right. So it's our existing debt, annual debt payments, of which we are obligated to pay in order to maintain our indentures and compliance. We refunded in 2016, 18, and 20.
And can I pause you right there real quick? 'Cause I understand refinancing debt, but what does refunding debt mean?
Same. I mean,
Refunding debt means that we were able to get a better interest rate for a certain amount of time, and those savings were front-loaded in this program, in the system.
Is that not the same as refinancing your debt?
In public debt,
In
no.
your world, it is not,
is
but in my
not.
world, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
This
just,
is why I don't have your job.
yeah, so those opportunities, our customers did realize the benefit. However, those opportunities do not exist today. If you, even in your world or our world, you know what's going on in the financial markets
Okay.
and the interest rates. So those opportunities do not exist
Okay.
today for us to refund debt. Did I?
You
Okay.
did correct.
And so,
that
through,
helps.
so through the chair, we must increase our debt payment moving forward?
Correct. We,
Because a big chunk of this is increasing debt payment.
correct. These were debt payments that were agreed upon by the city long ago, but we had been getting refunding, so we've been able to reduce our rates. These are going back to the original approved rates.
So
or-
some of these are chickens coming home to roost. We don't have the option of kicking them out of the hen
And
house.
how long ago was
Correct.
long ago?
The last time CPP issued debt was 2008, so those rates have been, these have been in place actually since 2014.
Okay. So this is not a this is not a choice made for the health and benefit of CPP. This is a reaction to a necessity that we have the obligation and we have to increase our debt payment.
Chairman of the councilman, correct.
Okay. Okay. On page 28, to the chief financial officer, you had said something during your presentation that kind of like perked my ears, and I didn't understand it, but I didn't want to interrupt. You were in the midst of saying something that Commissioner Danielson wouldn't like it if there was a number, and I sensed that there was maybe
would
something
like-
underneath the surface, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So could you just elaborate a little bit more on what the point you were making earlier?
So in your, you can see the difference between 2024 and 2025 in operation expenses.
Yes.
Commissioner Danielson would love it if I would allow him to have a whole lot more money, because I'm making sure that we're not exceeding what we think that our customers can absorb in this 2025 year. So he would like to have more than $54.2 million for operations of maintenance of his
I see.
group. But we are being cognizant of our customers.
Okay.
If I can clarify,
Greedy.
Not that he,
I would love to not have to take any pennies from my customers.
I apologize, yes.
Okay.
I would also like to be able to spend more money at any given time on serving our customers. So that's the
see.
challenge,
Okay.
right?
Okay. And then I'm sort of getting close, about halfway through here. So then I think the chairman actually got to the bottom of the 150-day target. The 150-day target, through the chair to the director, please correct me if I state this wrong, is the amount of cash, encumbered and unencumbered, on hand needed to run CPP for 150 days. That's the target.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay, and that goes up every year through inflation, through the various things that rise, that increase costs. So the 150-day target is currently a little over 70 million this year, but you're anticipating it to go up to 80 million in the next 2 years because of anticipated increased expenses, and so you're going to need more on hand for that 150-day coverage,
Correct,
Which includes the debt.
which it does include the debt.
which includes the okay, right. Okay, then on page 31. So we get into debt service coverage. And I'm confused by the vertical axis of 0.51, 1.52. Is that millions of dollars? Is that
Now, that is
half?
2 times coverage, so our annual debt payment, we are required to have 1.2 times that in our net revenue. So the way a debt service coverage is calculated is net revenues over annual debt payment. So it's the ratio that we need to make sure we have more net
Revenues need
revenue.
to outpace debt.
Yes,
I get that part.
That's
So,
what that is.
okay, so currently in 2024, our minimum is 1.5. That's like healthy practice, that's the law, or?
yep, the target is always to have a 1.5.
I'm sorry, 1.25.
Yeah, the minimum, based on our indentures, is 1.25.
Minimums as for healthy financial practice, or minimum by law, or minimum by Like, what?
By this obligation, if we are below the 125, there's actions that we have to take based on our agreements with our bondholders.
Okay, so this gets in debt markets and bond markets, and
Right.
when they require us to maintain this, and this is our A- ratings and all that stuff gets in,
Correct. We have a whole lot less control if we have to go into those scenarios.
okay.
Which we want to avoid.
Yes, I
At
am
all
pretty sure
costs.
city,
Okay.
finance would not be happy with us.
They wouldn't let us do it.
I think I'm almost there. So then let me jump back into the kilowatt hour rate versus the energy adjustment charge, or as we're gonna call it, the TSR. It's been my understanding for the last couple of years on this committee that CPP has not raised rates, which is the cost that it, as we just clarified, is the cost that it, for you to distribute power to the customer. That's the kilowatt hour. That's
Correct.
we have not raised those rates. And how long was it, Mr. Chairman? It's
83,
since '83. So we're coming up on 40 years.
41.
41, we're past 40 years. We're 41 years. We have not raised electric rates in 41 years. But clearly costs have gone up in 41 years somewhat dramatically. And the way that we've adjusted for that is with the EAC. I thought that that was why we haven't raised rates, yet the bill goes up over, we're not paying the same bills we were in 1983. My understanding was the difference was the EAC. What am I getting wrong about this?
Chairman, to the council members, so, no, EAC is the power. Those
Price of purchasing
those
power.
3 line items in your budget book that hopefully you approve this year that amasses to $120 million. That's the EAC. The kilowatt hour, or the electricity charge that we know as the KWH, the first line on your bill, the base rate, tariff rate, whatever we're going to call it, that's the cost of doing business. That is what we pay our employees, how many employees we have, the operational dollars that we use to operate. So how did we do it for 40
But
years?
through the chair, there's no way that hasn't gone up in 40 years.
It has gone up exponentially
Correct.
in
but-
40 years.
But the kilowatt hour has not. So how have you done it?
Right. So it has been through a number of different ways. We have many less employees than we used to. We pay more to less employees. So it's been,
That's not,
it's a big part of it. And the capital needs, and what is the other thing? Well, the debt, but.
The other big thing is in the 90s, CPP also had an expansion, so it did bring up
A lot of,
some of our, so it
so revenue
spread
went up
out
with new
some-
customers.
Correct.
Okay.
And in that philosophy, if we would expand even more, it would help stabilize the kilowatt per hour charge,
absolutely,
which is something that we have been discussing
absolutely,
for years.
So,
which requires additional capital.
I get it.
so we've been essentially, to simplify, we've been lowering expenses as a way to prevent increased costs being passed on to customers.
Correct. Chairman of the council.
Okay. Okay. But readjusting the kilowatt hour at this point will not have any impact on the EAC or the PSR, as we're about to call it. That will still be a charge roughly the same, if not going up as well, because that's reflective of the cost of purchasing power for the system to begin with.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Last question. And I'm glad that we're not voting on this today. This is a lot of information to take in, and I'm glad that we don't have to decide, what the vote is. But my last question, and this is sort of, I don't know, maybe a little left field. The average kilowatt per hour usage between 2012 and 2024 was down 24 kilowatt hours. I think it was 508 to 532. That doesn't seem dramatic to me at all. It seems like for the last 12 years, we've been talking a lot about energy efficiency, about trying to make our homes more efficient, about trying to lower our footprint. But 24 kilowatt hours out of 500 is like less than 5%. Am I missing something about, are we failing to realize energy savings and a way to reduce, consumer pull on the system? Like, we flipped over to LED lights. Like, does that have no real impact? Like, what? It doesn't seem like a big
So-
difference.
Through the chair to the councilman, individual appliances have been going down in consumption, but more appliances and things that we're plugging in are going into our homes. So while individual appliances, we are finding those energy savings, they are going back in with something else that's coming into the houses.
And I would just add also, it includes what we talked about earlier with the number of apartment buildings, right? That's the average customer in Cleveland Public Power
Is
has
it apartment
reduced.
buildings?
No, no.
Oh.
The numbers that you just cited, the difference in kilowatt hour consumption
Yeah.
is an average of all of our customers, right? And when the
All of our
type and
customers.
style of the buildings, if it's electric heat, if it's an all-electric apartment, would consume more even though they're more efficient, right? So there's a lot of different criteria that goes into it. We were just speaking kind of generally the reduced average consumption of a typical
Yeah.
customer for council's
Sure.
digestion, right? And we did the same with water, right? We budget an annual reduction in the consumption of the product that we pull and deliver.
Yeah.
So it all adds into the number which we have to end up with to provide service.
I guess I was expecting something more dramatic. I mean, the entire nation has changed our light bulb system, right? We all went through the pains of having to get rid of our lovely, soft, glow, incandescent old light bulbs into these bright white, and the whole country's done that. And it seems like our benefit is 5%. It seems like, I mean, maybe I was expecting more. It seems like we're all getting energy efficiency everywhere we go. We hear about energy efficiency, but it doesn't, on average, look to be huge. And I guess if the answer is that we're plugging more things in, we now have 5 computers per house, and computers had a much higher draw than I expected to see. I didn't think they drew that much. But I guess if we've got 5 computers plugged in, we might have more energy efficient appliances, but if we've got more plugged in, then we're not really realizing a huge savings in energy consumption.
I've never heard of an energy-efficient computer or a cell phone, right? And those are things that,
Yeah, and how many people are now data mining, trying to get, rich off Bitcoin, right? And that's
Right.
nothing, that's a huge energy waste. That was my last question. I just want to double check here real quick before I actually say thank you. This is my big one. So it looks like 11.25% increase over 2 years. That's what we're talking about. Just to put it out there on Main Street, on Front Street, and just say it out loud for everybody. It looks like an 11.25% increase in kilowatt hour over the next 2 years.
unlike a report that was written, a story that was written over the weekend where it stated 25%, that's incorrect. Right, it's 11.25.
that right?
6.75 in 2024.
Plus.
2025, I'm sorry, and then 4.5 in 2026.
Comes up to 11.25 over 2 years. And will there be a third year, a fourth year, a fifth year increase then, or?
Well, that's the cost of service through the chairman of the councilman, the cost of service analysis that we continue to go through for the phase 2 to get us almost hopefully caught up on rates for Cleveland Public Power.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gray.
I have a couple questions. Thank you, Chair. But page,
Councilwoman, make sure you talk into the mic so we
okay,
can hear you.
all right, thank you. What's that page? 35, dealing with the recommended rate plan, bill impact summer. Now, this particular, the rate plan is referring to the customer's bill, Chair, to Commissioners, per se. This is what they're going to see on their bill when this starts?
Chairman to the council member, that is our recommendation, correct?
Yeah, that's your
That's
recommendation.
3 different customers in the city of Cleveland. There would be a low, which would be the 200 kilowatts, the top line, and then the average at 500, and then a high at 800. So there's 3 different customer classes of our residential customers with the recommended rate adjustments for 25 and 26. So yes, you're right.
Okay, and Chair to the Commissioner, customers that are on a fixed income, this is recommended per se, and the ones that are on a fixed income and just raising the monthly rate $4 to $5, that will be a hinder to them. Now, will you be going out into the community or our community meetings to go to go over this with them, Chair to the Commissioner?
If I can answer that real quick. One of the things that, and I was going to announce this at the end, is, we're going to, at least myself, with the support of the administration, and I'm going to tell you this at the end, yes, we will be making community meeting. We will be, but we're also going to put a time limit on it, a time frame on it. So I'll explain it to you at the end.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
what we'll offer.
Okay.
And if I could, through the chairman to the council member, also through Chief Jackson's team and CPP, developing some flyers, some videos to reflect not only what we're proposing, what we're doing, but also the efforts that we need to do to just kind of change the narrative, right? This is our asset. This is really important. We do amazing. They do amazing work, and we need to showcase it to everybody. So we're going to put a lot of effort into not only the communication of what we do as a utility, the recommended rate impact, the affordability aspects of it with the HEAP eligibility, how to reduce or manage your consumption, which immediately lowers your bill, right, internally to your own domicile. So there's a lot of things we're doing on that regard, but we can't do anything without council. So if I couldn't put out a whole PR campaign before we came and did this exercise.
Yes.
Important, very important
Very important.
effort.
All right, thank you. That's about it. That was.
All right,
Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman. Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of my questions have been touched on by my other members. But, I guess I just want a pretty basic understanding how I communicate this to my residents when they call. Over the next couple years, you're proposing to increase our kilowatt rate charges by 11% over 2 years. But the energy adjustment charge, or the energy adjustment charge renamed, will continue to fluctuate. Is that safe to say?
Through the chairman to the council member, yes. So on the bill currently, those three, or that was up there, those three entities are the line items. They all fluctuate based on consumption. So whatever goes through the meter will be multiplied by the number next to it. What this is recommending is the first one, the base rate or the electricity charge, that number will go up 6.75% in 25 and 4.5% in 26. The power supply recovery, or the EAC number that we've only adjusted twice in the last 5 years, something like that, will remain the same because that's to buy the power.
Okay. Through the chair, so as a customer, how can we, one thing we want as customers, we want stability in our expenses. We want to know that our bill will be $150 or, $160 or $100. We want to know that our bill will be that month after month after month if we continue to live the same way we've always been living. It's the shocks in increases. We don't hear when people bill decrease, but we hear when the bill substantially increase. How can we, as CPP, how can CPP and as all of us communicate to our customers better to create some kind of stability to know so they can gauge how much electricity bills they will have going forward? Can we hit on that? Can we touch on that? Is that hard to do, or is it?
So, Chairman to the council member, it's not hard to do, but it's hard to explain. If you set your thermostat at 74 and it's 90 degrees for 5 days outside, your air conditioner's running 24/7.
Right.
But if it's 74 degrees outside and you have your thermostat set at the very same thing, it doesn't turn on. Right? So you use exponentially, that's the inclement weather, the fluctuations that you realize in the electricity world that you don't in other utilities unless you have a leak. Right? So it's hard to, that's the education that we need to do better at. If it is really, really hot, then maybe you can't keep it at your thermostat at where it was. If you have everything plugged in, the dehumidifier, the wall air conditioner, the baseboard heater, all for comfort, right? I don't disparage anybody that does it. It just costs. There's costs associated with it. And the weather fluctuations have an immediate impact on what you pay for electricity. And that's hard to communicate. A lot of people don't like to hear it. I don't like to hear it when the kids are home, right? And they're running everything, and it's just, but we do need to get better to assist you from our own doing business to educate our customers about conservation, reduction in consumption, and the resulting lowering of their monthly bill. But happy to work on that. I know the commissioner is working with Chief Jackson and her team on some things. So happy to get council's input, happy to run them. We will certainly run it by you before we send it anywhere, but it's an ongoing communications initiative.
Okay. And through the chair, my last question, is there a way, we talk about the energy adjustment charge and we talk about how much CP pays for power. Is there a mechanism or is there a group like the PUCO that publishes how much power fluctuates month after month, and so where the customers can kind of tune in to see, okay, the state power has increased 10%, I can expect 10% in my energy adjustment charge. Is there a published, is there something that consumers can tune into to get that information through the chair?
So if we're, through the chairman to the council member, speaking specifically to the energy adjustment charge, which we are proposing to call power supply recovery,
Yes.
it's posted on the bill. So we haven't, again, it hasn't gone up in I don't remember, EAC.
So we had to make some changes in 2022 because power markets fluctuated dramatically. And then we brought it back down in the middle of last year, I believe, after those, after the market settled down a little bit. But when we do adjust the rates, we are actually looking at the hope of not having to adjust rates for a 3-year time period. So assuming that all of our resources and all of our power supply come in where we think they're coming in, then we expect that our power supply recovery rate will not change. But just as the market goes, we have to adjust with that. So the vast majority of our power is contracted, but we do have about a 10% that we are looking into the market because we don't know how much power we need at any day or time. So we have to have that leeway to do that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just to clarify, Cleveland Public Power, do they or do they not make money on the energy adjustment charge? Or is what you bring in is what goes out?
Do not make money.
Right, so there is no profit
Oh, no.
on the energy adjustment charge, correct? It's just for the purchase of the electricity, and we're purchasing electricity at the lowest rate possible.
Correct.
Just to clarify that, right? Okay. Thank you, Councilman Bishop. Councilman Jones. Well, hang on. First, Councilman Kelly, did you have anything? No. Okay, Councilman Jones.
So is it the chair's prerogative to always make sure that is members called in order of the committee?
I always make sure the members who are actually on the committee get called first, and then anybody who's not on the committee go after all the committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our distinguished guests, if I could get, I think the gentleman's name down at the other end of the table, is that Mr. Commissioner Ammon Danielson?
Correct.
Is that correct? And what is the distinguished lady's name that's right here at the table?
Chairman of the Councilman, it's Catherine Troy, Chief Financial Officer, Department of Public Utilities.
And Catherine who?
Troy.
Troy. And so, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is Mrs. Troy responsible solely for Cleveland Public Power, or she's across the grids working for all the utilities?
Chairman to the council member, all utilities.
Okay.
Department of Public Utilities, Chief Financial Officer.
All right. Do we have someone who does that work specifically, tasked for Cleveland Public Power?
Chief Troy.
So she's the only one, she's doing that in addition to the other utilities as well? So she's shared all across the, what departments does she work in, Mr. Chairman to Director?
So, Chairman to the council member, under the charter, there are 4 divisions of the Department of Public Utilities. There is Cleveland Water, Cleveland Public Power, Water Pollution Control, and Fiscal Control. Catherine Troy is the chief of the Division of Fiscal Control, which then she would have teams under her responsible for each individual utility, and then collectively, based on our bond covenants and all the financial instruments that she has to sign, I'm glad it's not me.
Who, Mr. Chairman, then is responsible for Cleveland Public Power up under your organization? That pulls all the numbers together, that does all the financial work?
I have several people under me that help me with that, but I oversee all of those activities.
Can you provide those names
I can
We're
provide
happy
those
to provide it.
and what their responsibilities and roles are?
Sure.
All right. Mr. Chairman, who's responsible for the marketing of Cleveland Public Power?
Chairman of the council members, so we do have a public affairs communications representative at CPP up and through Chief Margaret Jackson's team.
So you're saying that Margaret Jackson does all the marketing and branding for Cleveland Public Power?
I'm saying that Chief Margaret Jackson is responsible for the public affairs and communications for the Department of Public Utilities, which includes the Division of Cleveland Public Power. There are, I believe, 2 or 3, at least 2 employees specifically assigned to Cleveland Public Power. Happy to get you those names.
Right.
And responsibilities.
So, but who, do we know someone in mind that's responsible for marketing? Just doing strictly, this is what we're about, we're Cleveland Public, Power, here's what we offer our citizens, and, doing the branding and marketing. So that's do you have a department that does that? Is there someone that we can look at and talk to?
We would include that with Chief Margaret Jackson. Public affairs and communications also includes marketing for all divisions.
So does Margaret Jackson do that work for Cleveland Public Power? I didn't think she would.
Chairman of the councilman, yes.
Well, she's doing too much.
Chairman of the councilman, I agree.
So she makes up all the brochures of Cleveland Public Power, makes sure the designs are right, and she sends that information. I just want to be clear what she does.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So then, now the next question would be, Mr. Chairman, to the director or to the commissioner. Your role and responsibility is to run the entire utility, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay.
Well,
And
Cleveland Public Power.
And
to
then
be
how long
specific.
have you been here, if I may ask both of the distinguished guests, running this utility?
I've been here since November of 2022.
So you've been here since 2022, and may I ask what public utility did you come from that you were running before you came here?
Well, before I came here, I worked at the Western Area Power Administration.
Was you
It's a
running that
federal
utility?
PMA. I was not running that entire
So this is
utility,
your
no.
first utility that you're actually fundamentally in charge of and running the day-to-day operations, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman.
For the entire utility, yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so the question that I would now ask the distinguished lady, Mrs. Troy, how long have you been working for Cleveland Public Power?
For the city of Cleveland, I've been here since 2007, with public utilities since 2012, and then I became the CFO in 2022.
So in 2022, you started working for Cleveland Public Power?
In my position in public utilities, I've been overseeing, I was within the first line of assistant managers since 2012.
So you've been doing work for Cleveland Public Power since 2012?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Well, let's get it out of the way. Director, how long have you been the director, and how long have you worked for the
I'm not
city?
asking him, so that's not
I
my
am.
question.
November of 2019.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, here's my troubling issue here, and I've had to deal with turnover here at Cleveland Public Power for quite some time. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is to try to figure out who's been here for quite some time and really been fundamentally working with this, because we are, and I understand the urgency, but the communications on why we need to have the increase has to be spelled out better than what it is currently right now in this presentation that you're giving me. As for an example, our customers and our taxpayers and consumers are being taxed like they have never seen it before. The Cleveland area has the highest water and sewage rates of the 6 largest cities in the Great Lakes region. We have Umbridge that is taking over for East Ohio Gas Company, and they have went to PUCO. I was at that meeting last night, found out about it the last minute, and I wanted to be there just to make sure, I say the 2 cents that I needed to say. They have increases of, unfortunately, 30%, and they have a fixed charge of another $30 that will be taxed on to the bills after the 30%, which will just be there regardless of if the consumer consumes natural gas or not. And then, unfortunately, our citizens got hit and smashed with, in my neighborhood, with a rate increases or tax increases to their properties, 80% on average in my neighborhood, up to 100%. I don't think that there's not one person that has not been hit hard in my neighborhood as it relates to these increases on home properties. And so, Mr. Chairman, I sit here with a heavy heart because, several years ago, I came here to this table and talked to then Commissioner and the Director at that time about Cleveland Public Power and its future, and made a number of suggestions, and it went on deaf ears. And when I asked at that time, what was your marketing strategy and sales strategy, what is your growth, you didn't have an answer. And I'm not so sure if you got one today. I suggested at that time, and what this member would like to see, is some progress and some reporting about how you're going to expand your utility, how you're going to get more customers. And you guys came in and gave me a snow job back in 2018, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't appreciate it. It was a smack to my intelligence, and even though it wasn't you guys who are sitting here right now, and I've said this, and I'm going to ask the question, what is our expansion goals?
Chairman of the council member, to serve every customer that we can.
Right, but what are the goals and objectives to expand your customer base? You have on your map that we haven't even went into Ward 17, they got 0 customers. What are we doing? What are the strategies and the marketing plans to bring in more customers?
So, Chairman of the council member, the financial impact of expanding to Ward 17 is not reflected
I'm just
in these
saying
rates.
in general.
We don't have the money to do it.
I'm just saying in general. I have asked that 7 years ago. Do you have any kind of plan
To expand to Ward 17?
To expand services into your existing map place where you're at right now, because there's far more customers you can get in the city of Cleveland that you haven't gotten.
Chairman,
and you certainly haven't gotten all of the households in your own territory. So what is the plan to expand in your own territory in addition to, and this is a 7-year-old question, in addition to going outside the market space? If we're going to be a utility that grows, then we have to have a growth plan. So do you have a growth plan will be the question overall, Mr. Chairman, to the commissioner, because he's here, he's been here for a while now, he ought to be able to have a growth plan. So do you have a growth plan, distinguished gentleman?
I will
That's
start,
either yes
and
or
then
no.
The answer is yes, and our
Can you-
current customers, through the chairman of the council member, the current 73,000 customers have to pay for the expansion.
Okay.
The current customers, so there's no taxes,
if
there's
you-
no, right? So
but
the
that's not
current
what I'm
70
asking, Mr. Chairman.
the $16 million to expand to the airport and to Ward 17 would be paid for.
That's not what I'm
by
asking, Mr. Chairman.
But that's the growth plan. You
But
asked
that's
about
not-
the growth plan.
But you haven't let me finish.
Hang on.
It was either
Councilman
yes or no.
Joe-
You said
Yes.
yes, and then I wanted to, Mr. Chairman, ask another question. Because, see, you can tell me that all day long, but that doesn't mean anything to me unless you have it in writing. So
So the
I
answer
would
to your
like
question
to,
is
Mr.
yes.
Chairman, I will
There-
request and I've
ahead.
asked for this, I would request a growth plan for Cleveland Public Power, because we're playing around with this. And I don't want to be kicking the can down to the next generation of, and there's a reason why we have Cleveland Public Power. There's a lot of political people who've staked their lives on expanding and being competitive within First Energy within this market space. There's historical perspective and fights, legendary fights, that has happened here at this table with previous mayors going all the way back when I started 30-some years ago. And to have a utility, Mr. Chairman, that gives great rates to its citizens. And so my question was back then, and I don't want you to think, Mr. Chairman, to the director and to those at the table, I'm a Grinch on this issue. I'm passionate about the business of taking care of the citizens' business. The second issue, Mr. Chairman, I asked, and I haven't gotten that information, I'm quite sure the director can make it available, is that we have, we encumbered debt. And so that investment debt, can you show, do you have, and I guess the question would be, Mr. Chairman, because if you want me to make a decision on this and our people to support it, I definitely need to get this information. And that would be this. Do you have your portfolio of investments that have been made and where we are in some of those investments? Some of them were some very bad investments, and we went into the red with those investments in terms of buying power. And I know that that discussion was here at the table quite some time ago before you got on board, was why did we encumber back in the earlier portion of, I want to say it was around 2013, 14, and 15, we had made investments into other utilities. Where's those investments? You know, what is that debt? You know, do you have a portfolio on that investment? And, you know, have we closed some of that out? Where are we at with that? And then what would, Mr. Chairman, since you're going to be providing, you're going to have a provision of a growth plan that you're going to bring forward, that you've been working on, and a marketing plan to extend and grow our customer base. Is that correct? Would you be able to have that for me?
Chairman of the Councilman, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to get to what was some of the stuff about the public. Have we been to the public, to the ratepayers? Have we had any feedback on them, with them as it relates to this rate increase? Have we got any feedback from our taxpayers?
This is the start of it, right? And once all questions are asked, I have an ask of council members.
Right,
Where
but-
we will be going out.
So then the
And-
question then,
And
Mr. Chairman.
we'll be going out at the discretion of each council member who wants us to go out into the community where I'm going to work with you to get a date for us to come out and get public feedback and do our presentation to the community.
So then, do we have an idea, Mr. Chairman, when we're going to get out to the neighborhood before we actually, because I'm hoping that we don't pass this and then go to the community. I would hope that, like last night, when I went to the PUCO, they had the consumers come and voice their concerns about the increase. So I would hope that we would be doing that.
We will not vote on it till we get out there.
Okay, great. That's excellent. And so now the next question, Mr. Chairman, that I would have for the director is, so we're going to have the layout and projections on the growth for the company. When this increase is made, just want to make sure I'm on the same page. It's an 11.5% increase, correct?
Chairman to the council member, what we're recommending for consideration by council is 6.75% in 2025 and 4.5% in 2026.
So that's 11.5 total? What is that total within that period of time?
11.2, if you add those two together,
11.2?
11.25%.
Right. So what would that generate in your customer base now? Do we have the projections of what that looks like?
That was in the presentation, wasn't it?
page that was on.
Page 28.
It's page 28 of the presentation.
Through the chair to the councilman, it is about a $10.9 million increase.
What page is that on? You said 28?
Slide 28, so the 2028 revenue requirement of 83.9 million minus what the 2024
Can
revenue
you,
requirement
can you,
is
Mr. Chairman, give us an actual overlay projection like, you know, you would do a financial portfolio? I really can't. This doesn't really give me the kind of information I need to really extrapolate, right? So if you have your customers today and you start, because right now you're doing a 6.7% ask right now, in addition to a 4.5% ask that will take an effect later. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Correct.
Okay, so can you give me an outlay of what that looks like as it gives an analysis, a chart that shows the amount of money that's going to be gross total based by your customers?
And that's what's on page 28, Chairman.
It's
to the
like-
councilman.
it's sort of your chart would be spread out based upon years, 22, 23, 24, you got 24, 25, 26.
That's
but-
this year, and then the two proposed increases.
So.
Chairman to the council member.
And now I'm looking at, and now is this would also include what you already bring in, correct?
In 2024, yes.
Okay. So you're saying that this increase right now would be at 15.9 million for 2024? You'll get that much more money with this rate increase?
No,
And
that's the
then-
debt service, Chairman
That's
to the
the debt
council
service.
member.
So
If you look
where's-
at the bottom, the legend, operating expenses, capital, and debt service for 2024, total
Okay.
73 million. If the proposed rate increase is accepted by council, then we anticipate in 2025 would raise to 79 million, as reflected over the 2025 year, right? And then 2026, 83.9, which is what CFO Troy said was the 10.9%, $10.9 million increase over the 2 years. 73.
And that's the estimated projection.
Chairman of the council member, that's correct.
And that increases, you're saying, all the way to about 83.9 overall is what you would take in on everything.
Chairman of the councilman, that's correct.
And then you're still at the 17.8 million debt.
Chairman of the council member,
Service.
that's correct.
Why doesn't that increase as well?
The debt is, Chairman of the council member, the debt is determined by the historical debt that we have, right? We note that in 2024, it's 15.9 million, but we also know in 2025, it goes up to 17.8 and stays that way until through the year 2038, 2038, as reflected in page 30.
Okay, I have some more questions, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to find them, so bear with me. Okay. So this rate increase right here, would this be a sustainable rate? Would you look to come back to consumers later on for any increases to this?
Chairman, through the councilman, not through 2026. This is phase one of the cost of service analysis rate study through 2026. So we do anticipate coming back to council with the full cost of service study presentation and any recommendations that are brought on by that.
And right now, your current operating cost, you stated in the presentation, is for 150 days, you have an 80 million cash reserve. Is that correct?
That is what the target is to have by the end of 2026.
So what do we have currently?
We currently have about $70 million.
And so we pretty much been running that year in and year out. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman to the Director?
Chairman of the councilman, yes.
And we haven't had any issues that you foresaw in the past that may have caused us to have an issue under the current system you're having now? in terms of the 150 days, 70 million cash on hand?
Issues through the chairman to the
In
council
terms of
member?
not being able to make payment because you didn't get
Oh,
funds in?
no, but our debt service coverage and our industry recommendations is what we have concerns about, right? The financial health of the utility is what's determined by that 150 days cash. So, no, we have not experienced any serious difficulties.
With this-
However, we have been very lean in the operation and need to expand to provide better service to our customers.
Right. And that takes me to my next question, investing in infrastructure. Do you have an investment plan for your investments in infrastructure, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner Danielson?
Through the chairman of the council member, yes. I mean, we're going to provide, as previously requested by the vice chair, Councilmember Spencer, are the capital expenses currently, and then the projected capital expenses should these rates be instituted, which, as again reflected on page 28, from 5.2 million to 7 million to 9.8 million in capital.
Right. So then on that, the diversity of your revenue streams, where are you, I know that we have made investments, and I haven't seen any paperwork on, do you have any other revenue streams that come into Cleveland Public Power on your spreadsheets
Chairman of the
that
council,
we may
member,
not be
no.
aware of?
Other than grant opportunities, which we are very active in through the chairman of the council member, no.
So right now, you don't have any other revenues that are coming in other than the electricity rates that you charge your customers?
Chairman of the councilman, that's correct. The excise tax, right? The tax that's collected by the state
So
that
then
is remitted back to through the general fund to the utility. There would be modest interest income based on, but other than that, it's the grant opportunities and the federal grant opportunities similar to the solar that we're currently pursuing.
So how far are we at? Because that goes to it's all in the same thing of how we have the diversity of other revenue sources coming into Cleveland Public Power, for an example, could include energy efficiency programs, which it sounds like that's what you're working on as it relates to renewable energy projects, electrical vehicle charging stations, and other value-added services. We see right now in the market space that other utilities are getting into the game of putting out systems to charge electrical vehicles. They're looking for ways to increase their revenues and other revenue streams. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, are we doing anything to advance that proposition of being able to generate other revenue streams?
Chairman of the council member, yes. So on the electric vehicle charging stations, we currently have 3 grant proposals that I'm familiar with from the city to do it in the right of way. And CPP would be the provider of the power, the collector of the bills, the billing agent for those electric vehicle charging stations. Currently in the city, we have the ones at the rec center, right? That is benefit, but it's run through the meter at the rec center, paid for by the general fund to CPP, but it is an asset to CPP to provide these resources, and we're looking to expand.
And so one of the reasons why I'm asking you these questions and trying to pull this out of you is when you're going to the public, you want to talk about your cost diversity and programs that you're putting in place to generate new revenues, to get them to see the value of why they would want to, or why we would want to increase their rates on them. Cost containment strategies. You talked about your belt. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now for cost containment with this utility? Do you have that would be something as a tax rate, a ratepayer, I would want to know, what are you doing to reduce, that cost? And I think, one of the issues would be renegotiating those contracts that were bad, that we got into, and to really put that on the table. If that's something that you've renegotiated, some of those contracts, that looks good because it tells our ratepayers that you are fiscally responsible and you went back to renegotiate these bad contracts that were made before you obtained this position. So do you have anything to add there?
And then, Councilman,
Councilman, we're going on 12 o'clock, you're going on 24 minutes, so
Oh, I didn't know
I'm going to
that.
ask you to wrap it up if you could.
Okay, so then I
And
guess-
again, this isn't going to be the first hearing for this.
Well, I just want to make
So
sure that.
thank you for the
I-
cost containment recommendations, certainly happy to provide.
We want to put this out here now because in order for me to support it, right now I'm not, because of the simple fact that I've asked for this information several years ago. And I was promised to get this information. They never sent the information over. We still don't have, now you're saying, you got this rate study. I haven't seen any progress from Cleveland Public Power in terms of growth, marketing, other strategies to generate electricity, cost containment, diversifying revenue streams. These are things that we tried to talk about back in 2018. And that's, I took notes on it. And I'm going back to these old notes that I took several years ago. And so I would ask, also, Mr. Chairman, when we talk about cost containment, identify those areas that you have reduced, Mr. Chairman, and then talk about how you renegotiated contracts, if you did, and optimized our supply chain and implementing energy-saving measures in your operation. The other one will be leveraging our financing options to include or to utilize a mix of financing options, including green bonds, low-interest loans, and grants for renewable energy projects and infrastructure improvements. Now, I know that we requested what infrastructure improvements you got, but when you start asking taxpayers that you're going to increase it, they want to know what projects or infrastructure projects that you're working with, and then how you're going to grow these initiatives and minimize the cost.
All right, Councilman, I really don't want to cut you off, okay? But we're after 12 o'clock here, 25 minutes. Here's what I would like to assure that by the time the next committee hearing on this, if you could please just send me an email, because I don't want it to get lost in space somewhere. I want Joe Jones to send Brian Casey an email with any and all information you would like from Cleveland Public Power. I will then work with Brooke and the director to assure that as long as you don't send it the night before the committee hearing, okay?
Just like I got sent this information.
Just as long, because these are answers that are going to, these are going to, questions that are going to take some time to get the answers to.
Yeah, I
So
get
please, within a reasonable time frame,
will do that,
you
Mr.
send me one, and I'll make sure so that you don't have, so that the ability isn't there to blame the administration for not getting us anything that we want.
No,
So,
I'm
if you
going
could
to
do
make
that.
sure that you got it, Mr. Chairman, but I
Okay.
do want to, state that it would be nice that the administration would give us the information ahead of time as well.
Okay, well-
I mean, to have this presentation the day of or the day before doesn't do me justice to really fundamentally go into this, because this is a major issue, because I see so much potential in Cleveland Public Power.
Right.
And just let me say this, I have never seen it so raggedly run. And so right now, and that's no disrespect to the group that's sitting at the table, I know they're trying to do the best they can with what they got and what has been handed to them. So I don't want you to think, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that this is a reflection of you and your leadership. This is that sitting here 8 years at this table, not to have some of the most fundamental, information in front of me, to know how much this is going to cost our taxpayers, and then to make the argument about how efficiently and effectively we've been running this institution, and not to have any kind of annual snapshots, knowing that we have made bad investments, knowing that the Cleveland Public Power has been in the middle of some major controversies. When I came into public office, and I'll share that with you off the side, because I ain't trying to open up that can of worms sitting here at this table. But what I want to say, Mr. Chairman, is having this information helps me to make the right determination if I'm going to support it or not.
All right.
But I have to see, Mr. Chairman, that you got the right leadership in place that can really drive this company to growth, expansion, and really offering our taxpayers, as it is to some degree, but lower rates
All right,
than what they're paying right
I
now.
look forward to your email. I'm working to get those answers for you. Just kind of wrap up a little. Just some quick questions. How long has Bernie Jackson been with the city?
I believe it's 31 years.
What about Jim Ferguson?
I think that's just at 30.
30 years. And what about our chief of public affairs? How long has Margaret been?
She won't say.
She's over 30 years, right?
But she ain't been with Cleveland Public Power 30 years.
So we
how long has Cleveland Public Power been in existence?
1906.
1906.
Right, so this is not a fly-by-night operation that we're just trying to drop on the residents of the city of Cleveland. It's been up, it's been established. We can't help what political fights happened in the past, because just as there was political fights to save Cleveland Public Power, there were political fights not to get them to expand to the west side. I am not inclined to relive all that stuff, but I am inclined to do everything I can, whether it costs me politically or not, to help Cleveland Public Power expand. The director knows it, the commissioner knows it. We've had numerous conversations. It's just, how do we come up financially with the money to do it? This could be the first start. This isn't the only start, because it's going to cost millions, but we are looking at other options. And the key thing is the airport, correct, Director? I mean, once we get to the airport, but it's how are we going to get there? But please, nobody think that we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs trying not to move Cleveland Public Power forward just by keeping the lights on. Commissioner Danielson has been extremely a bright light at Cleveland Public Power. No pun intended, I guess. And I have faith in him. I saw him working through the storm, right? And I don't think that he so much wants to just keep the lights on day to day, but he wants to see us expand. And he's here to help us move Cleveland Public Power forward. And that's what he did in his previous job, as whatever he did. Out in wherever, out west, wherever the hell you were. I just want to clarify one thing. Inez, can we put the other slide up on the, and it's on everybody's tablet, because there was a lot of talk about the energy adjustment charge. And here, and it's on your tablet, we have a bill from First Energy. And I want to note that on First Energy, okay, not only do you have the charge for power, but you also have, the AEP Energy, but you also have charges from the illuminating company, like the customer charge, the distribution-related component, a cost recovery charge, a consumer credit rate. So on this bill here, your charges, your additional charges, which would be our EACs, are more than the actual use of the electricity. So don't think that the energy adjustment charge or recovery power supply charge is just specific to Cleveland Public Power. Every other utility company has this as well, which helps them recover the cost of energy. So when we talk about the energy adjustment charge, yes, that's what it is for Cleveland Public Power. And you're right, Councilman Jones, we oversee Cleveland Public Power. We don't see First Energy. And I have First Energy because I don't have the ability to have Cleveland Public Power. But I can't sit at a table and scream at First Energy about an energy adjustment charge or an AEP charge that they want to do. You know, I don't have the ability. We're not overseen by the PUCO, right? This council here is Cleveland Public Power's PUCO, right? So I don't want anybody to think that we're out there charging our customers anything excessive or in addition to something that it's obvious that we're just keeping the lights on and we can't expand because we haven't done anything. Since our last, everybody wanted to talk about a percentage, since our last rate increase in 2000, and I can't even say 2000, in 1983, if you want to break out from the last rate increase to the end of this rate increase, you're talking about 0.2616% increase per year. That's 0.2616% increase per year that we've asked our customers to come up with from the last increase to the end of this increase. I don't think that's a lot, right? Now, it just happens to be in 2 years. But if you want to look at Cleveland Public Power, like people have said, over the course of the time, if you got a 0.2616 pay increase every year, you'd find another job,
we've been able to live on a 0.2616 over 43 years increase. I think,
Been a 2.6 increase each year, correct?
no,
You're
on
saying over
average,
space.
0.2, you know how small that is? 0.261, it's less than 1. It's a quarter of 1, right? A little more than a quarter of 1. So everybody's, it's, Cleveland Public Power has did a marvelous job for the last 41 years, keeping the lights on. We can talk about trimming trees and light poles, and I'm talking about when you walk into your house and you turn that light on, financially, all they've been doing is making enough to keep the lights on. But we're talking now about the cost of power increasing, which has to come from everybody. It just can't come, Cleveland Public Power can't float the money anymore, right? Which is why we're at this. And the reason it hasn't been increased since '83 is because it's always been political, right? And we need to get over that. We need to get over the politics of increasing when just about every member of this council will help support increasing people's ability on levies and everything else. Cleveland Public Power is a city-owned entity, right? So we either decide we raise rates or we risk shutting the lights off. That's basically what it comes down to. So I just wanted to say that. I also wanted to show people that we're not the only one with an energy adjustment charge. Every utility in the country probably. I didn't research everyone, but I brought a local one, so we're not, the energy adjustment charge is not unique to Cleveland Public Power. It's just not called an AEP energy charge. Everybody's got their own name for it. So I understand the frustration of that. And again, that's just to recover the cost of purchasing power. We don't make money on the energy adjustment charge or the cost recovery charge. So with that, I want to ask the council members and the administration, if you want us to come out to a public meeting, right? Somebody from the administration,
Want you to come out.
commissioner, has agreed that, and I will agree to go out and present, but this legislation also has to sit for 30 days, doesn't it? Before it
After
kicks in.
passage.
At 30 days after
How
passage.
fast are they looking to?
And hang on, 30 days after passage, it has to sit, and we want this increase to be effective January 1, correct?
Correct.
Right. So I'm going to ask my council members that no later, that if you want to schedule a community meeting, to please work through me. I will work with the administration, but we're also going to do a cutoff of October 11th. That gives us then 2 weeks, that
yes.
allows it, then that gives us plenty of time if we're going to pass this for the rest of the month of October, and hopefully passage, if it's going to pass sometime in November, to sit for the 30 days before it goes into effect, okay?
Mr.
So October 9th is already gone. Put it in your calendar. Somebody's already claimed that date, because we want to get this done in the time frame that needs to be done. In addition, this isn't going to all fall on the council. I would like to work with the mayor, right, the administration came to the council with this. So I would like to see the mayor as well publicly come out and support the rate increase as well, because this doesn't get to us unless it comes through the administration. So this doesn't just fall on the council. The mayor needs to also show us that he is in support of this rate increase as well. All right?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, before I gavel out.
So I just, again, and, I'm going to, if I can meet with the administration, with the director I'm going to chart my information down, I'm going to give it to you, I'll CC copy all council members, and I'm going to give it to the director. These are notes and ask and questions that, that go back 7 years ago. And so it hasn't happened. I'm not going to support nothing that I don't see some kind of financial portfolio, a progress report, how you've been doing, what your growth scenarios are. And then, Mr. Chairman, on the point of the time to be able to give it to the public, again, it's jamming us down, these people. And so for my neighborhood, we'll be able to meet on October 24th. Can the director meet my neighborhood, or whoever will be responsible for making presentations on the 24th?
You don't have another community meeting before October?
We do have another one, but see, we got to
Okay.
give the citizens time.
Even if you want to hold a special meeting, Joe, we will work with you, okay? But I'm giving- I'm giving-
Then
I'm
we
giving
need to-
three-
we
I'm
need to
giving 3
work-
weeks.
We need to work to try to do that
So,
really fast, because
Joe, you've been a council member for a very long time. You should be able to
Well,
have the
Mr.
ability
Chairman,
to say, listen, I'm calling a special CPP rate meeting
Yeah, well-
and pack the place. I know your residents
Yeah,
of Ward
well-
1, they will
well-
show up.
well, Mr. Chairman-
Okay, so it's not our convenience,
Mr. Chairman,
right?
I have been sitting here asking for information I still haven't gotten yet.
Joe,
And so,
I
in that
gave
7
you a
years-
way to get that
so
information.
I don't
All right,
mind having a
at this
special
time,
meeting, Mr. Chairman.
we're done.
But what I'm saying to you